Well, let me say a few things. First, all of the various explanations that have been given are blah, 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 blah.
You mentioned Norwegians gave the Peace Prize to Machado, and I already see that Fox News has announced that she is the logical successor now after Maduro's fall. This is how they frame it. But of course, all of this is this was to a large extent the purpose, I think, of giving the prize. That is to give the legitimacy for the invasion, given that she has been a supporter of it. But it also, of course, was complemented by other justifications. We heard about narco-terrorism. We're told that Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, Russia, China, all of these actors are operating in Venezuela, whatever that might mean, which makes it also legitimate. And of course, Trump said that this is our oil and we want it back. So with all of this various different justifications, none of them are very convincing. And in terms of trying to put in Machado, though, as you suggested, it doesn't seem as if the game isn't over yet. The idea that they can just kidnap Maduro and then Washington can elect the new leader, it doesn't seem to work this way. But do you see, how likely do you see the U.S. being able to essentially break the Venezuelan government now that the president has been taken?
Well, let me say a few things. First, all of the various explanations that have been given are blah, 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 meaning that they are whatever joke or improvisation the United States wants to use for the moment. The U.S. has been trying to overthrow the government of Venezuela for 23 years. They tried a coup against the predecessor of Maduro, Hugo Chavez. They have announced that the U.S. is the enemy, that Venezuela is the enemy of the United States, to put it more clearly, because this has been a left-wing regime that believes that Venezuela's resources belong to Venezuela, and that Venezuela does not have to follow the U.S. Dictates on who controls the oil and who receives the rents and so on. And so this is a long story, and it's very important to understand. In 2017, in Trump's first year of office, he said to a dinner table of Latin American leaders, "Why don't I just invade Venezuela?" Two of the leaders talked him down from that. I heard from two presidents that were there independently about this dinner. That idea of Trump of invading Venezuela is 8 years in the making. The lead cheerleader of invading Venezuela was Senator Marco Rubio, and now Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And there were celebrations in Florida today of Venezuelan expats and others celebrating the U.S. action. What does this mean? This is partly U.S. politics because Florida is a swing state, but it means it's been a long-term project. Whatever is said is just blah, blah, blah. This is a concerted, long-term attempt to bring down the government of Venezuela. I think people would do well to understand how the U.S. foreign policy operates. It operates on a long-term basis and tells whatever lies or stories or narratives it wants to tell at any given moment to keep the long-term narrative. In the case of Ukraine, it was a 30-year project to bring Ukraine into the American military orbit. This goes back to the early 1990s. In the case of Venezuela, it's been a more than 20-year effort. In the case of Syria, where Bashar al-Assad was brought down last year, that was an effort of 13 years by the CIA and the U.S. deep state. These are projects, and trying to overthrow Venezuela, which just happens to have the world's largest reserves of oil in the whole world, larger than Saudi Arabia, though more expensive to produce because it's heavy oil, but still the world's largest reserves. Well, this is a project of the United States. Trump is unusually thuggish. The collapse of the American constitutional order is very far advanced. I would say, if you think about Roman history going from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire, which is usually dated to 27 BC with Augustus becoming the princeps, I would say we're somewhere into the reign of Tiberius now. In other words, the U.S. stopped being a constitutional order 10, 20, 30 years ago. But we have the trappings of the Senate the same way that the Romans kept the trappings of the Senate. We don't have a constitutional order. We have a president enriching himself and his friends. Nobody says a word. We have a president that rules by executive decree. No one says a word. We have a president going to war against Iran or complicity in Gaza or attacking Venezuela or bombing Nigeria. Nobody says a word. We're into a post-constitutional order in the United States. So this is really our situation. It's quite dramatic. The world should not sit by if it takes any lessons from history. This is an extraordinarily dangerous period. The reason we created international law, the International Court of Justice, was not for the U.S. to sanction it and threaten it and bludgeon it. It was to avoid global annihilation in a third world war, but that one in the nuclear age. We're getting closer to that every moment when we rip up the UN Charter.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌帮助了睡眠品质。原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，它添加有超级食物羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good， 请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。